Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, Reverend Dr. D, and when you lose something, it's usually the last place you look, but I never like to say that. So even after I found it, I keep looking for it. Now, I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I ask you to consider the source and you'll understand that it is. But today, we've got something that is lost, and it isn't really lost in a place. It's actually lost in time. It's our forgotten and vanishing knowledge with the author, Jack Bialik. And Jack, it is a pleasure to have you with us. I'm glad we were able to find you and have this conversation because it's really kind of interesting when you think about, this is what I refer to as the ancient wisdom teachings, those writings that have been around for millennia, down through history. And I sometimes wonder if our human processes, and this is outside of ourselves, is intentionally trying to, as has been done down through history, destroy those bits and pieces of knowledge along the lines of the destruction of the library at Alexandria, to a case in point.
Yep.
And then when there are wars or conflicts, and one of the sides decides we're going to destroy the museums, the libraries, any place where there is information that would contradict what we are trying to disseminate. Now, I realize I've kind of gone far afield here, but we are talking about this aspect of this knowledge that there are those that I've had on my program who say it isn't really gone, at least not in the, shall we say, esoteric sense. But not everybody knows how to access the Akashic records and those kinds of things. Talk to us a little bit about this knowledge, this vanishing knowledge. What is it? Where has it been? And is it really gone?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on, Dr. D. Um, it is interesting once you start wrapping your head around this. I kind of call this mystery hidden in plain sight. And once you start thinking about things in this way, you'll see more and more examples of things that, we had at one time. We forgot about it. We found it again. Then we lose it again and we find it again over and over and over again. It's like a bad, dream that we keep having where we keep losing knowledge and wisdom that we have.
Mm.
And somebody asked me, first of all, how can you write a book about forgotten and vanishing knowledge?
Good,
How can you
good
even do?
point.
Yeah. And there's so many examples in history. I'll start out with a simple one with cataract surgery. In modern days, we started doing cataract surgery in the 1700s. And
Wow.
yeah, it was a little different back then than it is today. They had to have you strapped to a chair
Oh,
when
Lord.
you did the surgery because the cornea of your eye is the most sensitive part of your body. It has more nerve endings per square inch than any other part of your body.
Well,
And
speaking as a guy, that's news to me.
well, yeah. Well, if you get a hair in your eye or you
Ah,
get a piece of dust, it drives you nuts until it comes out. And you know, come to find out, they did cataract surgery in 800 BC. There was a physician in India, Shushruta. He did cataract surgery. He did other things. He did nose jobs. He also took care of people with diabetes. There's a whole book of things that he did. And surgery even goes further back. We have the Ebers Papyrus that has example. It shows you how they did cataract surgery in 2400 BC. And there's
hmm.
records of where it was done in Babylonia in 2200 BC. So, you know, we had it in ancient Egypt, forgot about it. Somebody in India discovered it again, lost it again. Then we found it again in the 1700s. So, back to your point, there's seems to be this forgetting over time, and there's a lot of simple examples. The number zero is an interesting example, and how we used the number zero in ancient times, but then you come to the Romans, they didn't use number zero. There is no zero. You cannot draw me a zero in Roman numerals. They didn't have that concept.
I was just thinking that, as a matter of fact. Yeah, there isn't one. I love the little argument that Sheldon and the other members of the Big Bang Theory have in a conversation they're having about zero and how it was actually invented, if you will, in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was the Arabs who came up with zero, which has no value. And so, I mean, and they're doing this circular argument that goes on and on for about 5 minutes. And finally, Sheldon says, I think my brain is going to explode because he can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, the argument that we had around the turn of this century. Okay, so what was the first year of the 21st century? Well, I ordinarily would say, well, it's 2020, 2000. But others said, no, 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 it's 2001. That's the beginning of the new century. Well, but 2000 isn't the end of the last century because it's 2000. And obviously, if we didn't have zero, we'd have a whole different numbering system. Hey, let's all go to base two numbering. How about that? Don't need a zero. It's just ones and twos. Or oh no, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. It's zeros and ones. My mistake. But what? Okay, here's. And I know you've been asked this question. If this is lost or vanished knowledge, how do you know that it's vanished if you don't even know, in one sense, that it exists? Or how do you know that it exists so that you know that we don't have it anymore?
Yeah. Well, there are many examples like this. I can show your viewers here this guy.
Oh my goodness. I don't, I know the name of it, but it escapes me.
This is a ancient Roman dodecahedron.
That's right. Dodecahedron. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you'll see this is a replica of one. The originals are made out of bronze. They found 100 or so of these. buried around the year 200 or 300. Um, and this has 12 sides. That's what a dodecahedron is. It has 12 sides. And there's six on top and six on bottom in the bottom. If you cut it in half,
Hmm.
there's six and six. And the interesting thing about this is each of these sides has a hole that's a different size. You can kind of see that. Some of them are
Yeah. Yeah.
more,
No two holes are the same size.
yeah. Well, the most interesting thing about this artifact is that we don't know what it's for.
That was going to be my next question. And now
There's
what am I going to do with you for the rest of the hour?
not done. There's no written records, there's no pictures, there's no drawings, there's nothing that tells us what these were for. And yet they found over 100 of these. They find them every once in a while.
All right, focusing on that then. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, the first thing that comes to mind would be that they would be used in some fashion for construction, building of things, because it looks like with like a geodesic dome, it's supposed to be one of the strongest structures around. It'll withstand a
Yeah,
lot of stuff going on as opposed to, say, a Georgian style house and so forth. And maybe those were building blocks of sort. But then again, you would then have to find structures that had been built using those devices or those
yeah,
dodecahedrons,
yeah.
and we don't.
No. And there's all kinds of conjecture.
Yeah.
Uh, they think they were tools for knitting, a range finder, a measuring device, a candlestick, a die for gambling or divination.
Oh yeah.
I've got a good friend, uh, Douglas James Cottrell. He says that it's an incendiary device. You know, I I don't know, and it's just conjecture, but this is the problem, and this is where lost knowledge comes in. So let's talk about our other famous elephant in the room,
Mm-hmm.
the pyramids at Giza.
Mm-hmm.
And so my background, I did a lot of project management in my life. I've done multi-million dollar projects for corporations. And I thought, wow, what if I put a plan together to build one of these pyramids, And I just did some simple math, just real simple. Anybody can do it. The experts say they took 20 years to build. There's 2.3 million stones, 3-ton or bigger stones, 2.3 million of them. So if we just do the math, 20 years, that means you've got to lay one stone every 2 minutes, 12 hours a day, 365 days a year for 20 years.
Wait a minute. You get 8 hours off to sleep? Really?
I took time off in the dark.
12. I'm sorry, 12 hours. What am I
I
thinking?
just took 12 hours average of light,
Yeah.
So yeah. So one every 2 minutes. And not only that, you've got to lay these 3-ton stones perfectly flat, perfectly level, and one on top of the other with no space in between them.
Mm.
So tell me, can we do that today? I mean, how could we even cut that many stones that fast today? Unbelievable, however they did it. And there's a lot of conjecture, there's a lot of stories. I mean, they didn't have the wheel, they didn't have pulleys. So obviously, however they did it, they didn't need a wheel, they didn't need a pulley, you know. But there's nothing written, there's no record of how this was done. We don't have little pictures carved out on the side of a stone somewhere and, showing us how they were doing this. Nothing. So, oh, it's a mystery right in front of our face. And there's other
Yeah.
examples like that.
Many others. Yeah. It's extraordinary too that over the course of time, certain things do come to the forefront. Someone has seen something like, or maybe they've seen the dodecahedron, and then a few years down the road, they're working on some project and they remember the dodecahedron, the shape, and all of this kind of stuff. They wonder if I was to incorporate that into this thing that I'm working on, and
Yeah.
and then the next thing you know, they've innovated something. Now, I say that let's say, for example, people might say, well, the smartphone, that's an innovation. No, it's not. Because the main purpose is for communication. And we've been communicating long before we ever had smartphones or telephones or telegraph or smoke signals, etc., etc. We've had all kinds of innovations along the way that have helped us to communicate, just as they have helped us to transport ourselves from point A to point B. So that's why I wonder sometimes about this lost knowledge, and if this some of this lost knowledge is recoverable. Are there ways, or like with the dodecahedron, people have been researching it for what, years, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And have found and have come up with nothing. And I'm wondering what if there have been other various methods or attempts to find out using more, shall we say, esoteric methods?
Yeah, well, th that's a possibility. Maybe there's some way of finding that. I think you referenced earlier about Akashic records, and
Hmm.
there are people who uh, you know, say they can do that sort of thing where they can read records that are stored in a spiritual way.
Yeah.
Um, and if people with if there is an ability, a capability to do that, maybe we can find um, some ways to figure out what some of these things were for.
Hmm. I like some of the titles of your chapters. The one in particular, of course, starts a song ringing in my head, and I know you knew that this would happen to anybody that reads the book. Chapter chapter 6. If only I could save time in a bottle.
Oh,
Uh, Time is a construct of man. It's not part of the universe. I mean, if you're traveling out in space and you don't have any chronometer, what have you, some type of device that allows you to keep track of how many minutes, hours, and days go by, you have no clue. Animals, obviously, just as man, we can use the sunrise and the sunset, that kind of thing, when it gets light, when it gets dark. But what if there was no light and dark? What if it was just, oh, I don't know, artificial, I guess, if you were traveling, again, if you're traveling in space. What about that concept? And in terms of saving some of these things, this knowledge, so that it doesn't vanish. I mean, have we done any good at digitizing things?
yeah. So in some ways, we're going backwards, I'll say, in
Okay.
saving our knowledge. Let's take an example. Ancient times, stone tablets, carving out, you know, things in a tablet. Those tablets last thousands of years. You move to papyrus, to paper, move up to, digital media, or let's say microfiche or microfilm that lasts maybe 100 years before it becomes brittle or discolored. Move up to uh, digital data. Let's say your USB drive or your SSD drive. How long are those going to last? How much information is in them is dense information, a lot of information. But how long is it going to last? I mean, how long does your computer last, really?
Hmm.
5 years, 10 years, it stops working. How long do you think that SSD drive is going to last? Not that long. So we've kind of gone backwards in terms of data retention time. And yet, in terms of density, we've gone through the roof. And so we're doing things we're doing some good things, but maybe we need to take a big picture. Maybe we need to stand back and think about things in the long term and longer time. There are organizations that are doing that. Long Now Foundation, they measure time in terms of tens of thousands of years. If you go to their website, this year is 1, 2. 10,225. So I'm sorry, 10,225. So they're trying to make people think about the long term, a longer view of our world. And I think when we invent a new phone or a new device to store something on, we're only thinking about, well, how can I build it faster? How can I put more data on it? How can I make a next big buck? Can I make more money with it? Not that that's a bad thing, but we need to include, how can we save it longer? How can our children have it or our children's children? Or how can we have it so that they can live a better life, and they don't have to deal with problems?
But by the same token, in, I'm going to put it this way, 1,000 or 10,000 years, because we don't know what the future holds, humanity may not even exist. And that's not to say that we're going to destroy ourselves. That's what I mean. That's not what I mean. But we do have natural disasters. We have all kinds of crazy things happen. And we don't know what is hurtling towards us that we haven't seen yet because it's behind a star that's heading directly for Earth. And it'll be here in 562 years on Friday, the 13th of February of, what would it be? 25 or 20, 25, 25. All right. And you remember that old song, In the Year 2525, if man is still alive, etc., etc. What difference would it make on that perspective? Or do we need to bring it back to maybe the next 10 years, 50 years, or 100 years? Because I'd like to think that mankind will still be here in 100 or even 200 years.
Yeah, well, let's even think about that. Let's even do that. I mean, I don't think we're even thinking about 100 years. A DVD and CD will only last 30 or 40 years. The pits inside will oxidize. And we're not thinking, we build stuff, your car, how long is your car built for? Only as long as the warranty will last.
Yep.
So, uh, we're not thinking about that. Maybe a few years, just as long as we need it, but not as long as the next generation's going to need it or whatever. There's some awful examples of things that have happened to us in the past. Let's take, for example, um, the cranial surgery that was done in 400 BC in Peru. They did cranial surgery where they would work on, if you got hit probably in a fight or something, and part of your skull was damaged, they would do cranial surgery on people in 400 BC in Peru, and they continued doing it until 1400, until the year 1400.
Wow.
When they did it in 1400, they were over 90% effective in the surgery they did, saving the person's life.
Mm,
Now,
wow.
if we go to the Civil War period, in the Civil War, they were 50% effective in doing cranial surgery. So we went backwards, and people lost their lives because of it. So if we found a way to keep that knowledge over that time frame, over that period, we could have helped a lot of people out.
Yeah. But I find what's interesting, Jack, is that the United States specifically, and of course, we're just coming up on our 250th anniversary, as it were. Although, if you want to go back to when the Pilgrims landed, we are looking at around 400 years. Uh, we in America, in a general sense, not all of us individually, have this arrogance that says that we can do it better. We don't need your help. Asia, Africa, Europe, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need your help. We'll figure it out. That's how we are. We're Americans and we can do this. And yet, when I start seeing some of these documentaries about some of these incredible discoveries and innovations in so many different fields, and I'm thinking, and how are we doing this? Okay, because I was looking at the way that they used to pave the roads in Roman times.
Mm.
And we're talking about multiple layers of things, okay? That would help with drainage and would help with shifting earth that wouldn't shift around and all those different aspects. I mean, they thought almost of everything. But we, nah, no, we're not going to do it that way. We're just going to lay some asphalt and some chip seal and press it down, and we're done. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
because that's the way we do things here in America.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is one of the points of my book. When I got to the very end of the book, I said, well, what's the point? Okay, so what? So we did this and we forgot and we did it and we forgot. What's the point? What are we supposed to take away from this?
Hmm.
And I really think we have to have humility to think, hey, maybe we don't know it all. Maybe there are things that they had long ago that we could use again. Maybe there's some good ideas there, or maybe not. I mean, we just have to have an open mind to it and do what's right, for ourselves. Yeah, exactly. Great point.
Yeah, it's and I have to say that what is really frustrating about it is that it's the powers that be that make these decisions that affect the common man and woman, you and me. And it's like you and this is where in another interview that I did today, the subject came up of looking after the children, and of course you hear the phrase all the time: the children are our future. And when I take a look at the over 160 or 70 kids that have been killed since I want to say, I think Columbine, maybe Sandy Hook, I sit there and say, you're a liar. You don't give a rip about our kids because you haven't solved the problem. I'm not saying I have the answer.
Yeah,
I'm just saying we haven't solved the problem. Whether it has to do with guns or whether it has to do with mental health, doesn't matter what the cause is, we haven't solved the problem. Ergo, when you solve it, then I will believe you when you say the children are our future.
yeah,
That's kind of like where we are today. It's crazy.
yeah. It might be a cultural thing. It might be bigger than just one person.
Hmm.
Might be just our combined thoughts about these things that we all need to do something and do the right things, for humanity.
Jack Bialik is my guest here on the program we call Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We hope you'll stay tuned. I'm Reverend Dr. D. This is Tell Me Your Story. And we are talking with our very special guest, the author of a neat little book, and it's not a long read: Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge. And it goes into, yes, indeed, we've got it flashing right up there. He's holding it up there for us. I also noticed as I'm flipping through the book, you have pictures in here. And I find this fascinating that again, I keep going back to the my basic premise. If it's lost, how did you find out about it?
Yeah.
What was your process in research?
Yeah, well, it was really interesting because it just took one thing. It just took one thing. So, watching, remember, I think it was the History Channel, and they say, hey, they had vending machines in ancient Rome.
No,
And,
what?
yeah, 200 BC, you could take a Roman coin, put it into a vending machine. It would dispense holy water at temples, and that water would turn into steam, and it would go on the face of the idol and make it look like it was crying. And,
Oh.
and in the hopes that they would get more donations.
Ha,
So
ha, ha, ha.
not much has changed in 2,000 years.
No. I mean, not to be sacrilegious in any way, shape, or form. I was born and raised Roman Catholic, so I'm very familiar with statuary, as well as some of the so called miracles where you have the statues of Mary crying blood. And you have to wonder. I'm not saying it's not possible that it's a miracle. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Um, Now you watched a lot of these documentaries. My wife and I watch quite a number of them as well, and we hear about these different things. And the other thing that is so fascinating is what you mentioned in your book, that there's of the 100% of human history that has happened, we have only managed to save just over, are you folks sitting down? Just over 1% of history. Now, is that because the different cultures just didn't keep records, or is it maybe again that combination of that plus during those times of conflict, the records of their history was destroyed?
Yeah. Well, that calculation comes up because of, humankind has been around for 300,000 years, and we only have recorded maybe 5,000 years of it, maybe. And even of those 5,000 years that we have any records of, even those records are, uh, many of them are lost. We found another example at the Yale not at the library at Yale. They have a document there, the Voynich manuscript, and that manuscript has been carbon dated to the 1400s. And they've had cryptologists, linguists, and scholars all looking at that document, trying to figure out what it says. And they have been able to determine that it is a real language. They have tests they can run on languages to know whether they're real or made up. And they know that it's a real language, but we cannot figure out what it says.
Hmm.
And so we know that there's things in the past that we've recorded, but still we can't figure it out because we don't have the key. It's like the Egyptian uh, hieroglyphs, without the Rosetta Stone, they were struggling. They never would have figured it out. Never would have figured it out. So there's a lot that's out there that's been lost that we haven't found.
So the Rosetta Stone is, I'm not, I've heard of it many, many times, and I know that it is used to decipher many of the hieroglyphics that are found during archaeological digs. But what is it? Is it like someone found the alphabet, the 26 characters of the English alphabet, and now they can use that to decipher the dictionary or other books that are in the library?
Well, what it was a big stone. I don't remember how big it was. It was a pretty big stone. And what it was a message to the people about something.
Hmm.
And they had it written in three different languages so that everyone could know what it was, whatever the Pharaoh was saying or whatever he
Hmm.
was telling everyone. And the three languages, so they had, it was written in hieroglyphs, and then it was written in another language in the middle, which is, I think it's an old form of Hebrew. I'm not exactly sure about that. And then the third language was Greek. And so they were able to look at the languages on there to decode what they were trying to say in the hieroglyphs. So, yeah, so that was the key. That was the only way that they could have figured it out because they were going the wrong way. They saw these Egyptian symbols and they saw a duck and they thought, "Oh, duck means it's a duck." That isn't what it meant at all. It meant it was like a sound. It was a certain sound.
Oh, wow.
So their language was like sounds, and that's what all those different things meant was a different sound.
Interesting.
So it would have been highly unlikely we would have ever figured it out. Just like
So,
this document. Yeah,
yeah, so each of those three languages has helped to identify or to decode the other two. I mean, or two of them were used together because someone knew what those symbols meant and so forth. Interesting. We're
right.
talking with our very special guest who's written a book called The Lost, not The Lost, Lost in Time. I should be lost in space. Jack Bialik is my guest here on the program, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge, as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I am Richard Dugan, Reverend Dr. D, and he is Jack Bialik. And I find this interesting in that you talk about how the information that we've lost over the centuries, over the millennium, if you will, um, if we could find some of this stuff, it could actually help us to move forward and progress forward as far as our development as human beings, as a species, as a civilization, as cultures?
Yeah, well, who knows what we could find? There are um, inf what do you want to say, libraries that we have put in the ground or in different places to try to save our knowledge for our future generations. Time capsules, we'll call them,
Hmm.
and in an attempt to help others. Um, and could people in the past have left us some time capsules? It's totally possible that could be the case. So maybe we have to find them. These things get buried, with dirt and whatever. So it becomes a little complicated. The
Mm.
shifted. Could they be under the water? Could they be in different places? So certainly the opportunity is there for us to find these things. Yeah.
It's interesting you bring up these time capsules. I think I participated in one, and it was at the construction site of the radio station the very first station I ever worked for. And I don't know, I may be wrong about this, but that is to me fascinating because when they do dig it up, accidentally or on purpose,
Yeah.
you'd like to think that somebody would leave a note somewhere to future generations saying, oh, by the way, in the corner of this building, on the northeast corner, down underneath the foundation, there's a time capsule, and you might want to dig it up. And then you dig it up and you start taking a look at the stuff that was put in there. And obviously, it's meaningful to the people who put it in there. But
Yeah.
to those who are digging it up, it's like, huh? I don't get the connection, you know? It's as if, let's just say in 10 years, they dig up this time capsule that was buried in 1980. And in it is a rotary phone. And you go, what in the world is this? And if we don't have the database to, let's say we take a picture of it and the AI then identifies it, but if the information isn't in the database for it to identify it, then we're not going to know what in the world it was for
Yeah.
unless they leave written information, descriptions about each of these items.
Well, will they be able to read the writing?
Well, there's that too. Because how many, I mean, do you still know how to do cursive?
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah, me
sure.
too. Me too. I have heard that here in California, they are teaching it again.
Mm.
They are actually teaching cursive again. And in England, I heard about this from from one of my guests some years ago. They are teaching the kids Sanskrit, but it's not for the purposes of resurrecting the language. By the process of learning Sanskrit, reading it and writing it and so forth, it rewires the brain.
Mm.
It rewires the brain as far as our ability to think and problem solve, critical thinking, and so forth. Whereas a lot of the education that's out there, and I'm not putting the schools down. I'm talking outside the schools. There's that education that is not helping to keep the brain functioning in a way that it could if someone found one of these artifacts, would be able to process it in a way that they would be able to find out what it's for, like the dodecahedron. I actually like the two definitions that you are that were speculated. Number one, a candle holder for different size candles. That's one. I like that because I like candles. Number two is a dice game. I think that's pretty cool. And each of the circles has a certain value. And when that circle comes up top, you know the value. Everybody's going to know the value of each of those, and and so there you go. A
Well,
fascinating little device.
yeah, somebody pointed out to me that there's 12 and there's also 12 months in the year,
Yeah,
So could this have something to do with the calendar? I don't know.
I mean, there's that. It could be a religious artifact because of the 12 apostles. Um, although there are those who say there were 13. We won't go there, but
Okay.
oh, it's just fascinating. And one other item I'll bring up as far as archaeology is concerned, because that's how a lot of this stuff is discovered. These items were obviously discovered. The dodecahedron was found through archaeology. And my question going out to archaeologists is, you are digging up the grave site of an ancient civilization going back, let's just say, 5,000 years. Okay? What is the cutoff point at which you can, and then you cross the line and you can't dig up that cemetery, that grave site? Is it 50 years, 100 years, 500? What are the limits? Because when my wife and I, some 20 years ago, were driving through Ireland for the first time and we're passing all of these cemeteries, and she wanted to visit them. She wanted to go in and take a look. And at first I thought, oh, that's kind of morbid. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, wait a minute. This is actually a part of history, because the people that are laid to rest here are the ones that built all of these little villages and towns and hamlets all around here. And so we went ahead and we looked around. And so I thought, I wonder, could an archaeologist go in here and dig up the Irish grave sites? Or would the Irish get a little ticked off? And I think the Irish would get a little ticked off. I just wonder what the cutoff point is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's an interesting emperor in 210 BC. He built this huge mausoleum in China, 7,000 statues. It's called the Terracotta Warriors.
Oh, I've seen that. Yes.
Yeah, and what's interesting about him is that his mausoleum, they will not dig up.
Ooh.
This
Okay.
man, it is rumored to be booby trapped and or written that it's booby trapped, and they will not dig up his mausoleum. So there's one guy.
Yep.
They're
I've
not.
seen, yeah, I've seen enough mummy movies to believe that that is probably true. I have to wonder if in Egypt, in the pyramids, when they were, combing through, that if they found booby traps. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you would think that each culture, each civilization doesn't want its ancestors disturbed. I mean, think of the Native Americans in this country. I mean, there is they get, rightly so, bent out of shape, as my father would say.
Yeah,
When people want to go in and dig, and then they find these artifacts, and they want to get through and finish getting the artifacts out so they can finish their project. And it's like the Indians saying, no, no, this is sacred ground. You can't do that, unless you will let us go and dig up at the Vatican. Oh, no, 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 that's sacred ground too. It's like, make up your mind here. It's very interesting.
yeah.
We are talking about lost in time, and it has to do with knowledge that basically it's our forgotten and vanishing knowledge. And I love the prime example that you had there, the dodecahedron. But I have a relationship to cataract surgery in the 60s. And back then, they did what was called needling. All right. Now, I was put under as a kid, and they would take a needle, go in, and they'd stir it up, and they would hope that the eye would then go through its normal process of filtering out those particles. Now, today, they use, and I've had this as well, they use laser as the treatment rather than going into the eye physically. And what they do is they hit the particles of cataract material that I believe it's protein, I think, or something along those lines. And they break it into tiny little pieces by hitting it with the laser. And it's the laser they used for me was called a YAG laser, and it was like watching fireworks going off. I was awake, I could see everything that was going on, and boom, and you'd see the fireworks going off, and that did seem to work pretty well. I haven't had really any problems since then. But yeah, the innovations, if you will, in the various procedures, and I am astounded that they were doing that 4 or 5,000 years ago. Oh my God! I'm glad I was born in this. in this time period. Yikes. It's really something. Jack is our guest, and he has got this great book here, Jack Bialik, and it's Lost in Time. As we continue here, we're not lost in time here on Tell Me Your Story. Well, this is an interesting conversation. This book is really interesting. I think you're going to want to go get a copy of it and take a look at some of these chapters. Um, who we lost, vanishing cultures. Now, I often wonder. We hear about, especially in the Amazon jungle, we hear that these certain tribes have just been discovered. They've never seen the modern world. They've been living in the depths of the jungle for maybe centuries without the modern conveniences, and they're doing just fine. But we know better. We want to bring them all of the good things. We want to bring them the starches and the fats and the good things and the cell phones and TVs and all of that stuff. And then all of the sudden, that culture just it disappears, either through the process of assimilation, which they didn't want in the first place. Where's the prime directive when you need it? Or because they literally will go even deeper into the jungle. And there are those who even speculate, Jack, that they didn't actually disappear. They went underground to what some people believe there is a Middle Earth, you know? Um, and what we've lost from those cultures that are gone. Um, is there any kind of even estimative accounting of how many different cultures have been lost over, I don't know, maybe the last 500 or 1,000 years or what have you?
I don't know if there's an estimate of those. There is some estimates about the number of languages that are being
Okay.
lost.
Hmm.
They think over 1,000 languages will be lost over the next 150 years.
Oh my.
Yeah. So, these things do disappear and these cultures too. A lot of, who knows what they knew that we could have made things better,
Yeah.
for ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right. It's really sad too because I think of this in terms of, let's just say, military conflict. Now, not even getting into the reasons why we go in and get out and da 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 da. Our youngest individuals in our societies across the globe are the ones who usually are sent to fight. And many of them, I don't even know what the percentage is, never return because they're killed in battle. My first thought is what lost potential, what they could have contributed. And I think the same thing of what you were writing about in Lost in Time in terms of this vanishing knowledge. What lost potential could have been used to solve some of the problems that we have today. I even think of, let's just say, diseases, certain diseases that some ancient cultures had the knowledge, the medical knowledge to cure people of that particular thing, but it's gone.
Yeah.
Do you see uh, money as a prime motivator in the modern era for hiding and maybe even destroying some of this ancient knowledge because it's not advantageous to that company financially?
Yeah, well, certainly what we develop today is all done based on, to a high degree, money.
Mm.
Why
Hmm.
why are we building a new, why does your USB drive now hold twice as much as the old one did? Well, they can charge you another, whatever amount and make a little bit more money. I mean, that's that's basically the reason we're doing it. Maybe it's going to take a cultural shift where we start thinking, hey, let's build something because it'll make our lives better
Hmm.
certain ways
Right.
so that it's better for us humans walking around trying to
Well,
do.
yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Do you, and you really did allude to this earlier, and so I want to expand on it if we can. And that has to do with thinking ahead. I think of certain cultures that have what's called the oral tradition, where information is passed on, not chiseled in a stone or on a tablet or papyrus or whatever, but the stories are told. And if you are going to, as a young person, pass that story on, you have to make sure you tell it exactly the same way as your mentor taught you. You cannot change a word. You cannot play the telephone game with those stories. Uh, do you think that that is a reasonable form of hanging on to some of this knowledge?
Yeah, it's been very effective, especially in history. And of course, it's used today. I know there's certain American Indian uh, tribes and those groups that do pass on stories to one another. It's interesting, a lot of the oral traditions 2,000 years ago, maybe even further back, what they would do is that they would have certain mnemonics, certain ways that they would put the stories together to make them easier to remember, maybe
Hmm.
on, their alphabet or whatever it is, so that they could remember it and recite it. Because remember, 2,000 years ago, they didn't have books. I mean,
Right.
nobody had access to books. So the only way you were going to pass down knowledge, the easiest way, was through stories,
Yeah.
really.
And you did have to know the story correctly because one change, I mean, we've seen that not only in if you change a word, but if you then you talk about translating from one language to another, you lose so much unless the translator truly understands the word in the original language and can break it down and add those words to the new language so that the meaning isn't lost. Hebrew, for example, each letter has its own legend, kind of like when you look at a map, you see all of the characters and the lines and so forth, and there's this little square down in the lower left-hand corner that tells you what each one of these characters means, what what the legend means. And so I'm thinking that maybe um, we need. I'm sitting here thinking, instead of translating it, why don't you teach the people the language? So nothing is lost in translation, as the saying goes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you were hitting on the point right there with the writing, uh, teaching children how to read script or write it. That easily could become a lost language right there, right in our time.
yeah. I'm curious, is your book in any other language than English?
Not yet.
How about Audible?
Soon.
Soon in Audible. Oh, looking forward to that as well. Lost in Time, our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge. Jack Bialik is my guest here on Tell Me Your Story. Jack, this has been fascinating. I am intrigued by the book, intrigued by the concept and the subject matter, just because there is indeed so much that is lost. And I think about it in terms of the ancient wisdom teachings. So many writings of the beliefs, or as I like to call them, philosophies, down through the centuries of humanity have been lost because conquering factions end up destroying the libraries and so forth. However, in some instances, the to be conquered know this is coming, and so they will then begin the process of securing and hiding those manuscripts and the writings and so forth and the teachings so that they can't be found, at least not until after the conflict is over. It could be hundreds of years, similar to, I guess, the Dead Sea Scrolls. They were buried in a cave somewhere,
Yeah,
you know. And you have to I ask the question, why, if they're so important, would you bury them in a cave? And there are all kinds of reasons why they do that. Some of the other chapter headings that Jack has in here is disappearing data. We talked about this in the digital dark ages. Is that kind of where you see us right now in that respect?
I think that is something we could experience. We could. Some of these events that happen to us are outside of our control. And
Yep.
you think, ah, yeah, we'll do it. This is safe, nothing will happen, but there's things that can happen that I'll point out a Carrington event. A Carrington event happened in 1854, I think,
Mm.
1856.
Hmm.
And that event happened to be that is an event where the sun has a super uh, electromagnetic pulse that comes out, a sunspot,
Oh yeah.
very large. And then in the 1850s, all that they had were telegraph lines.
Mm.
And when that electromagnetic pulse hit the Earth, it energized all the power lines and caught them on fire, and the ends where the telegraph offices were caught on
Oh,
fire.
wow. I think
So
they go ahead.
what would happen today? I mean,
We
would
would be the only word I can come up with would be we would be toast.
yeah, yeah,
We're toast.
it would be a
We
big problem. And
Yeah,
it's just a random event. I mean, we don't have control over that. So
exactly. Yeah, my friend Dr. Sky, he and I co-host a program called Skyview where we talk about astronomy, space, aviation, and weather, and he's talked a great deal about these what he refers to them as mass coronal ejections.
yeah, yeah,
And you're right, we have no control over them any more than we have control over the things that are flying through the universe. And there may be one I mentioned earlier that is behind a star. All right, we can't see it until it's too late, and it is actual. We are its bullseye. Now, I don't know that that's true. Okay, I don't know that. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying it's one of those things we don't have any control over. So live your life with fun and joy, and don't let don't let anything get you down. Don't let anybody steal your joy. We're not trying to do that here. We're just trying to look at some of these things. One other thing I wanted to mention and ask you about is some of the history, for example, of America in particular, but also some of these discoveries are in people's attics and basements all over this country. Like when someone goes to move and they've got to go up into the attic to clear it out because got new people moving in, they didn't know half or 90% of what's up there was even there. And it's just astounding some of the things that they find that are historical in nature, but also some that can be extremely valuable.
yeah,
So
yeah, that's for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
yep.
What is that program?
Oh,
That
yeah.
that road show, the Antique Road Show. That's it, Antique Road Show. That's where people find out that this old table that Grandma had that really looks like it needs a lot of work. Did you say $500,000? Really? Well, that's great that he appraises it at 500,000, but is there someone who is willing to buy it for 500,000? In other words, is there a market for what you're selling? And I know there's a market for what you're selling indirectly here. Lost in Time. Jack Bialik is my
Bialik.
guest, and we encourage you to go to the website. And that website just happens to be lostintime.world. Lostintime.world will be linked to that website as well as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. Jack, I would like to thank you so much for giving us the time here to talk about this. Lost in Time. Yeah, somebody lost their Rolex back in Roman times. They made Rolexes back there. Did you know that? But
No.
it only had one move. It didn't even have a moving part. It was a Rolex sundial. Think
Oh,
about that. We thank you so much for joining us and sharing this with us.
thank you so much,
I have
Dr.
three final questions I'd like to ask you. But before I do, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We're here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. Streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are also on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and we're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. And I hope you'll subscribe and click notification. We also ask that you go to Amazon and pick up my book, which is Choices 5 Steps for Life. And we also have it in Kindle as well as hardcover and paperback. We also hope that you could leave us a tip. And our tip jar is called PayPal. There are links on the homepage of richarddugan.com to both Amazon and to PayPal. We hope that you can help. To those who have helped and to those who will help, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And finally, we hope that you will take some time during this decade of perfect vision and to spend some time going within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place, listening to that still small voice. And with all that being said, we go to our final three questions. And those are number one, who is Jack Bialik?
Well, okay. Yeah. I'm an author, speaker, technologist, and I love to study the past, the history.
Hmm. What gets you up in the morning?
Ah, that's good. Well, I get up with a quiet moment every day and think about the day. I do say a prayer every day when I wake up in the morning.
Hmm.
And I'm hopeful. Every morning I get up, I'm also grateful.
And finally, what was your best day?
Ah, my best day was today. I always enjoy every day, and try to make the best of it, keep my head up and keep going, and know that I'm here to try to make a difference in the world.
Wonderful. As we hear on Tell Me Your Story, I thank you so much for being with us and look forward to talking with you again. By the way, I meant to ask you if this is your first book or do you have other works that we can find at your website?
Yeah, this is my first foray into the field, but I am
Well,
working on another one. I'm going to investigate monoliths and megaliths, both above ground and underground.
oh, very cool. I have a book called The New World Order that goes into that subject, but it's a whole different slant, no pun intended, on monoliths and church steeples and all of the mysterious, ooky, spooky stuff. So I'll be interested in looking at your book and having you on the program to talk about that. That's fascinating.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
And I thank you folks for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to lull. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for being in my life and letting me be in yours. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.